A small town, a dreamy young woman, and a mysterious stranger. Emily Johnson never imagined that sharing bread and milk with a stranger would change her life forever. But who was he? And why the next day did she receive an invitation that could transform her destiny? The sun had barely risen when Emily Johnson was already up, getting ready for another day of work at Parker's Market, the only supermarket in the small town of Greenville in rural Kentucky. Her brown eyes, still heavy with sleep, reflected in the mirror of the small bathroom as she tied her dark hair in an improvised bun. The blue market uniform, a little faded from so much use, was impeccably ironed on her bed, the work of Mrs. Johnson, her mother, who even after a long day bent over the sewing machine, always found time to take care of her daughter's clothes. "Emily, coffee is ready." Mrs. Johnson's voice echoed through the simple two-bedroom house. The smell of fresh coffee and homemade bread invaded the young woman's nostrils, making her stomach growl in anticipation. In the small kitchen, the peeling walls told stories of years of economy and hard work. Her father, Mr. Johnson, had already left for another day at the construction site, taking with him the lunchbox lovingly prepared by Mrs. Johnson. The blue Formica table, bought in installments so long ago that no one remembered when it was finally paid off, was set with the simple but lovingly prepared breakfast. "Mum, I set aside some more bread and coffee to take today," Emily commented as she spread butter on a slice of bread. "There are more people needing help near the market." Mrs. Johnson sighed, a mixture of pride and concern in her gaze. "Honey, you have a heart of gold, but you need to think about yourself too. It's almost time to pay the college tuition." Emily smiled, that smile that lit up her eyes and made small dimples appear on her cheeks. "Don't worry, Mom, God always finds a way. And besides, what's sharing a little of what we have with those who have nothing?" The night business administration course was her dream and her cross. Every penny saved went towards tuition payments. And even then, sometimes it was necessary to do some financial juggling to keep up with studies. But Emily didn't give up. At 22, she was already in her third year of the course and was proud of never having missed a semester, even having to work all day and study at night. She left home at 6:30 in the morning, carrying her worn bag and a bag with the food she set aside to distribute on the way. The sky was still painted with shades of pink and orange, and a cool breeze blew, swaying the dogwood flowers that adorned the uneven sidewalks of Greenville. On her way to work, Emily made her usual stops. First in the central square, where old Joe, an elderly man who lived on the streets, always waited for her with a toothless smile. Then near the main church where Mrs. Wilson, a lady who had lost everything in life, spent her days. Finally, before reaching the market, she stopped to talk to Tommy, a young man who had his life transformed by wrong decisions and was now trying to start over. For each of them, Emily offered not only food, she offered her attention, her sincere smile, and most importantly, her ability to see beyond appearances. She talked, asked about their days, shared stories, and even if for a few minutes made them feel seen, important, human. At the market, her shift started at 7 o'clock sharp. As a cashier, she spent the day between barcode beeps and conversations with customers. Her supervisor, Mr. Adams, always said she was the employee most loved by customers. "It's that way you have of treating everyone like family," he used to say. And it was true. Emily had the gift of making people feel special. She knew the names of practically all regular customers, asked about their families, remembered details from previous conversations. For her, there were no invisible people. On that particular morning, the sky began to close early, heralding a strong storm. The movement in the market was weaker than normal, and Emily took advantage of the calm moments to get ahead in reading her college material. Between one customer and another, she absorbed herself in marketing and business management theories, dreaming of the day when she could apply that knowledge to something bigger. It was during one of these pauses that she noticed, through the market window, a different figure. An elderly gentleman whom she had never seen before was walking slowly on the sidewalk. His clothes, although visibly worn and dirty, had a cut that suggested they were once elegant. His grey hair was disheveled by the wind that was starting to blow stronger, announcing the arrival of rain. What caught Emily's attention the most, however, were his eyes. Even from a distance, there was something about them that intrigued her. a mixture of wisdom and mystery that seemed out of place in that seemingly homeless figure. The rain started to fall, first in sparse drops, then in a violent downpour that made people run for shelter. The gentleman huddled under the awning of a closed store across from the market, and Emily felt her heart tighten. She looked at the clock. There were only 15 minutes left until her lunch break. "Mr. Adams," she called, "can I advance my lunch today? It's really slow anyway." The supervisor, who knew his employee's soft heart well, just nodded with an understanding smile. Emily quickly organized her cash register, grabbed her bag, and before leaving stopped by the bakery section. With her own money, she bought a fresh loaf of bread and a bottle of milk, protecting herself from the rain as best she could with a worn umbrella. She crossed the street towards the gentleman. As she approached, that feeling that there was something different about him only increased. His eyes, now that she could see them up close, had an intensity that contrasted with his tattered clothes. "Excuse me," she said, extending the umbrella to protect him too. "I brought something for you to eat." The man looked at her with an expression Emily couldn't decipher. It was as if, for a brief moment, a mask had slipped, revealing something completely unexpected behind it. But it was so quick that she thought she had imagined it. "For me," the gentleman's voice came out hoarse, as if it hadn't been used in a long time, but there was a slight accent to it that Emily couldn't identify. "Yes, of course," she replied with her characteristic smile. "With this heavy rain, it's important to eat well to keep the body warm." The man accepted the bread and milk with hands that, despite their worn appearance, had perfectly trimmed nails. Emily noticed this detail, but her mind was too busy worrying about his well-being to give it much importance. "What's your name, young lady?" he asked, after taking a sip of milk. "Emily," she replied, adjusting the umbrella to better protect them from the rain that was falling heavily. "And you, sir?" There was an almost imperceptible pause before he answered. "You can call me Abraham." "Abraham," she repeated, intrigued by the unusual name. "You're not from around here, are you?" An enigmatic smile appeared on the man's face. "No, I come from very far away. But tell me, Emily, why are you here, sharing your lunch with me, when you could be somewhere dry and comfortable?" The question caught her by surprise, not because of the questioning itself, but because of the way it was asked. There was an intensity in his gaze, as if the answer was much more important than it seemed. "Well," she began thoughtfully, "I guess it's because we all need each other, don't we? Today I can help someone, tomorrow I might be the one needing help." Abraham observed her with even more interest. "And your life, how is it? I see you work at the market." Emily felt strangely comfortable sharing her story with this stranger. She told him about her work at the market, about night college, about her parents, her seamstress mother and construction worker father. She talked about her dreams of one day having her own business, of being able to help more people, of making a difference in the world. "Sometimes it's hard," she admitted. "There are days when there's barely enough money left for transportation to college. But my mom always says that God doesn't give a dream without also giving the strength to achieve it." Abraham listened attentively, asking occasional questions that demonstrated a surprising understanding of the business world. Emily even thought he might have been a businessman before whatever had happened to him. The rain began to subside, and Emily realized her lunch break was ending. "I need to get back to work," she said reluctantly. "Will you be okay? Do you have somewhere to shelter?" "Don't worry about me, my young friend," Abraham replied with that same enigmatic smile. "I'm sure we'll meet again very soon." There was something in the way he said this that made Emily feel a shiver down her spine, not of fear, but of expectation, as if something important was about to happen. Back at the market, she couldn't get that encounter out of her head. Abraham wasn't like the other homeless people she usually helped. There was something different about him, something she couldn't explain. The rest of the day passed like a blur. Between one customer and another, Emily found herself looking through the market window, searching for Abraham's figure, but he had completely disappeared. At night, in college, she had difficulty concentrating on classes. Her mind constantly returned to that conversation in the rain. Abraham's questions seemed to have a greater purpose, as if he was evaluating something. "Earth to Emily," Her best friend, Sarah's voice, brought her back to reality during the class break. "You're in La La Land today, girl. Did something happen?" Emily hesitated for a moment before telling Sarah about her encounter with Abraham. Sarah, who worked as a secretary in an accounting firm and was always tuned in to local news, listened attentively. "Are you sure he was really homeless?" Sarah asked, furrowing her brow. "The way you described him, he sounds more like one of those undercover executives from TV shows." "Don't be silly," Emily laughed, but the idea was planted in her mind. The next morning, Emily woke up earlier than usual. There was something in the air, an expectation she couldn't explain. She prepared an extra amount of bread and coffee, hoping to find Abraham again. But when she arrived at the market, there was no sign of him. The day went on normally, or as normally as possible, when you have the constant feeling that something is about to happen. It was at the end of her shift that everything changed. A long, shiny black car, the kind you only see in movies, stopped in front of the market. The driver, dressed in an impeccable uniform, got out and entered the store, heading straight to the cash register where Emily was. "Miss Emily?" he asked with a formality that seemed out of place in that simple environment. "Yes," she replied, feeling her heart race. "Please, there is someone who would very much like to see you," he said, extending a golden card with elegant letters. Emily took the card with trembling hands. On it, in golden letters, was written, "Abraham Goldstein invites you for tea. Please allow my driver to take you to me." The name on the card made her heart stop for a moment. Abraham? The same Abraham she had met yesterday, sharing bread and milk under her tattered umbrella. "There must be some mistake," she began to say, but the driver gently interrupted her. "There is no mistake, miss. Mr. Goldstein was very specific. He said you met yesterday during the rain." Emily felt her head spin. Sarah's words came back to her mind. "He sounds more like one of those undercover executives." Mr. Adams, who had observed the whole scene, approached with concern. "Is everything okay, Emily? Do you want me to call someone?" She looked at the card in her hands, at the driver who was patiently waiting, and then at her supervisor. "No, Mr. Adams, everything's fine," she replied, although her voice trembled slightly. "Do you mind if I leave a little earlier today?" The supervisor, still concerned but realizing that something important was happening, nodded. "Of course, you can go. Just be careful, okay?" Emily put her things away, changed clothes in the small employee locker room, and followed the driver to the car. Her heart was beating so hard she was sure it could be heard from outside. As the vehicle glided smoothly through the streets of Greenville, Emily tried to organize her thoughts. Who was Abraham really? Why would a wealthy businessman be disguised as a homeless person in a small town in the countryside? And more importantly, what did he want with her? The car stopped in front of the Grand Greenville Hotel, the only luxury establishment in town, frequented only by business executives on business trips or wealthier tourists. The driver opened the door for her, and Emily felt out of place in her simple cotton dress. The lobby of the Grand Greenville Hotel seemed to be from another world. The shiny marble floor reflected the crystal chandeliers, and elegant furniture decorated the environment. Emily followed the driver to the private elevator, feeling increasingly out of place. On the top floor, the elevator doors opened directly into a presidential suite. Emily held her breath as she saw the panoramic view of the city through the huge windows. The sun was setting on the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, making the lights of small Greenville begin to twinkle like earthly stars. "Welcome, Emily." The voice was familiar, but at the same time different. Where before there had been a hoarse and tired tone, now there was an unmistakable clarity and authority. Abraham was standing near the window, but there was nothing left. That resembled the man she had met in the rain the day before. Dressed in a tailored suit, with impeccably trimmed hair and beard, he seemed to have rejuvenated decades. His eyes, however, were the same, deep, observant, and enigmatic. "Mr. Goldstein," Emily managed to say, her voice almost a whisper. "Please sit down," he indicated a comfortable armchair. "Would you like some tea? It's a special blend I brought from my country." Still dazed, Emily nodded. A hotel employee appeared silently, serving tea in fine porcelain cups. "You must be wondering about many things." Abraham began, sitting across from her. You're not really homeless, are you? The question escaped before she could contain herself. Abraham smiled, that same enigmatic smile she had seen the day before. No, I'm not. I'm Abraham Goldstein, CEO of Goldstein International, a global conglomerate with investments in various sectors. Emily held the teacup tighter, trying to absorb this information. But why were you disguised yesterday? Why here, in Greenville? Abraham stood up and walked to the window, observing the city stretching below. A few years ago, I realized I had lost touch with the reality of ordinary people. When you live surrounded by luxury and power, it's easy to distance yourself from the real world. So, I started a personal experiment. I travel the world in disguise, observing how people really are when they think there's nothing to gain. He turned to Emily, his eyes shining with even greater intensity. And yesterday you showed me something rare, something precious, genuine kindness, expecting nothing in return. Emily blushed, lowering her gaze to her cup. It was nothing special. Anyone would have done the same. No, Emily, Abraham shook his head. Not everyone would. Dozens of people passed by me yesterday. Some ignored me completely. Others looked at me with contempt. You were the only one who not only offered help, but also dignity, respect, and your time. He returned to his seat, leaning slightly forward. And that's why I decided to do something I've never done before. I want to offer you an opportunity. Emily's heart raced. She put the cup on the coffee table, fearing her trembling hands would drop it. What kind of opportunity? I want to offer you a full scholarship to one of the best business schools in the world in New York City. In addition, I'll offer a paid internship at one of the Goldstein International companies. You'll have the chance to learn, grow, and develop your full potential. Emily felt the world spin. It was as if she was in a dream, one of those crazy dreams you have when you have a high fever. But why? She managed to ask. You barely know me. Abraham smiled again, but this time there was something paternal in his gaze. Sometimes, Emily, a moment is enough to recognize someone's true character. I saw in you not only kindness, but also determination, intelligence, and a genuine desire to make a difference. These are rare qualities, especially when found together. He paused, taking a sip of his tea. Besides, your grades in college are excellent, despite all the difficulties you face. Yes, he added upon seeing her surprised expression. I did my research after our encounter yesterday. Emily felt her head spin with all the possibilities opening up before her. Studying abroad had always been such a distant dream that she didn't even dare mention it out loud. But what about my parents, my job? She began to enumerate all the responsibilities that tied her to Greenville. Your family will be well taken care of, Abraham assured. I'll provide a monthly stipend for your parents while you're studying. As for your job, well, I believe this is an opportunity for a new beginning. Emily stood up abruptly, walking to the window. The city that had always been her entire world now seemed so small viewed from up there. It's a lot to process, she said, more to herself than to Abraham. Naturally, he agreed. I don't expect an immediate answer. Take a few days to think, talk to your family. He approached her, handing her a golden envelope. Here's all the documentation, details about the university, the internship program, the benefits offered. I've also included my personal contacts and those of my assistant Sarah, who can help you with any questions. Emily took the envelope with trembling hands. Thank you, she said, her voice choked. But there's one thing I still don't understand. What would that be? You're a sheikh, an important man. Why go through all this trouble, disguising yourself, looking for people like this? Abraham was silent for a moment, his gaze lost on the horizon. Because wealth and power are tools, Emily, he said, not ends in themselves. A person's true value isn't in what they possess, but in what they do with what they have, and sometimes we need to strip ourselves of everything to find those who can truly make a difference in the world. The sun had completely set now, and the city lights sparkled like a carpet of stars at their feet. Emily held the envelope against her chest, feeling the weight of the possibilities it contained. The driver will take you home, Abraham said softly. Think carefully, talk to your family. I'll be in town for another week." When Emily got back into the luxurious car, her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. The envelope in her hands seemed to pulse with promises of a future she had never imagined possible. The driver dropped her off in front of her simple house, where the living room lights indicated that her parents had already returned from work. Before entering, she looked once more at the starry sky, wondering if she was ready for the biggest change in her life. Emily entered the house with her heart in her throat. The familiar smell of cooking beans and the low sound of the television welcomed her, a scene so everyday that it seemed unreal after the events of that afternoon. "Honey," her mother's voice came from the kitchen. "You're late today. Did something happen at the store?" Emily took a deep breath, clutching the golden envelope in her hands. "Mom, Dad," she called, her voice trembling slightly, "I need to talk to you." Her father, who was sitting in his favorite armchair watching the news, turned off the television when he noticed his daughter's serious tone. Her mother appeared at the kitchen door, drying her hands on her apron. "What is it, sweetie? You're so pale." The three gathered in the small living room, Emily seated on the couch between her parents. With shaking hands, she began to tell them everything: the encounter with Abraham in the rain, the revelation of his true identity, and finally, the proposal that would change their lives. "A sheikh?" her father repeated, incredulous. "Here in Pine Grove? And he wants to send you to study in Dubai?" her mother added, her eyes wide. "But honey, that's on the other side of the world." Emily opened the golden envelope, spreading the documents on the coffee table. There were luxurious brochures of the university, preliminary contracts, information about the internship program, and even photos of the campus in Dubai. "Look, it's all documented here," she explained, showing the papers. "The university is one of the best in the world, and Sheikh Abraham will provide everything: airfare, housing, a monthly stipend for you." Her father picked up one of the documents, adjusting his glasses to read better. "But why you, honey?" he asked, his voice mixing concern and pride. "Of all people." Emily told them about Abraham's test, about how he traveled the world looking for people with genuine values. "He said he saw something special in me, Dad," she explained, her voice choked. "A chance to make a difference." Her mother stood up abruptly, returning to the kitchen. Emily and her father exchanged worried looks until they heard the unmistakable sound of crying coming from the kitchen. "Mum?" Emily ran there, finding her mother leaning on the sink, tears streaming down her face. "Oh, my baby," she sobbed, pulling Emily into a tight hug. "I always knew you were special. Always knew God had a bigger plan for you. But Dubai, on the other side of the world?" Emily felt her own tears start to fall. "I'm scared too, Mom," she said. "It's all so big, so different from anything I've ever known." Her father entered the kitchen, enveloping both of them in a family hug. "If there's one person who can face this challenge, it's you, honey," he said, his voice hoarse with emotion. "You've always been stronger than all of us." Dinner that night was different from all others. Between mouthfuls of the usual beans and rice, they discussed possibilities they had never dared to dream of before. "But what if it's some kind of scam?" her mother asked, maternal concern speaking louder. "We see so many bad things in the news." "No, Mom," Emily shook her head. "I researched on my phone on the way home. Sheikh Abraham al-Rahman really exists. There are even photos of him in meetings with presidents of various countries, and the hotel confirmed that he's really staying there." "Even so, honey," her father intervened, "I think we'd better consult Mr. Johnson, that lawyer who helped Uncle Joe with his retirement papers. He can take a look at these contracts, see if everything's in order." Emily agreed. It was too big a decision to be made without all necessary precautions. That night, after her parents went to bed, she stayed in the living room, rereading each document from the golden envelope. The photos of the university showed a modern and imposing campus, so different from the simple college where she currently studied. The course syllabi were fascinating, promising knowledge that went far beyond what she could dream of accessing in Pine Grove. Her phone vibrated with a message from Julia. "Girl, is it true there's a sheikh staying at the Grand Hotel? The whole town is talking about the imported car that was parked in front of the store today." Emily smiled. In a small town like Pine Grove, News traveled fast. She decided to call her friend. She needed to share everything with someone who could understand her doubts and fears. "Julia, you won't believe what happened." The conversation with her friend extended into the early hours. Julia alternated between excited screams and moments of sincere concern. "But you're going, right?" Julia asked after hearing the whole story. "I mean, it's the opportunity of a lifetime." "I don't know, Ju," Emily sighed, looking out the window at the starry night. "It's all so scary. A different country, a completely new culture. And leaving everyone here." "Emily Claire Johnson," Julia almost shouted on the phone. "Listen to me. You're the most determined person I know. Since I met you in school, you've always gone after your dreams, no matter how difficult they were. Remember when everyone said it was crazy for you to try private college while working at the store? And look at you now." Her friend's words touched Emily deeply. It was true, she had never let difficulties stop her from trying. "But what if I'm not good enough, Ju?" She confessed her biggest fear. "What if I get there and realize I don't have what it takes?" "Oh, stop it," Julia retorted. "If this billionaire sheikh saw something special in you, who are you to doubt? Besides, you've always been the best student in class, even having to work all day." When she finally hung up the phone, it was past 3 in the morning. Emily went up to her room, but sleep wouldn't come. She stayed observing the stars through the window, thinking about how they would look from Dubai. On her bedroom wall, a small framed quote, "God doesn't give a dream without also giving the strength to achieve it," seemed to glow under the moonlight. Her mother's words, which had so often been her comfort, now seemed to have a new meaning. She took her diary, a simple notebook where she used to write down her dreams and goals, and began to write. She needed to organize her thoughts, weigh the pros and cons, understand her own fears and desires. "Dear diary," she wrote, "today the impossible knocked on my door, and now I need to decide if I have enough courage to open it." Dr. Johnson adjusted his glasses for the 3rd time as he carefully read the documents from the golden envelope. Emily, her parents, and the lawyer were gathered in his small office in downtown Pine Grove. The ceiling fan spun lazily, struggling against the afternoon heat. "Well," he finally said, placing the papers on the desk, "I must say that in 20 years of practicing law, I've never seen contracts so well crafted and generous." Emily felt her heart race. "So everything's in order, Doctor?" her father asked, leaning forward in his chair. "More than in order," the lawyer smiled. "The agreement is extremely favorable. The scholarship is complete, including housing, food, and health insurance. The monthly stipend for the family is well above market average, and there are very clear protection clauses for all parties involved." Her mother squeezed Emily's hand. "And this internship?" she asked. "Is it safe?" "The internship contract is equally impressive," Dr. Johnson explained. "Besides the compensation, which is excellent, there's a structured professional development program. And most interestingly, there's a clause that guarantees priority in permanent hiring after course completion, if performance is satisfactory." Emily felt as if an enormous weight had been lifted from her shoulders. After 3 days of anxiety and doubt, having confirmation from a respected professional like Dr. Johnson was an immense relief. "So," she began, looking at her parents. Her father and mother exchanged a meaningful look before her father spoke. "So, honey, I think it's time for you to accept this blessing that God has put in your path." Tears instantly came to Emily's eyes. She hugged her parents, feeling all the love and support they had always given her, even in the most difficult moments. The next morning, Emily returned to the Grand Pine Grove Hotel. This time, as she entered the private elevator, her hands weren't shaking as much. When the doors opened on the penthouse floor, she found not only Abraham, but also an elegant woman, who introduced herself as Sarah, his personal assistant. "So, Emily," Abraham smiled as he saw her, "have you made your decision?" "Yes," she answered, her voice firm. "I accept your proposal, Sheikh Abraham, and I promise I won't waste this opportunity." Abraham's smile widened. "Excellent. Sarah, we'll take care of all the arrangements. We have a lot of work ahead of us." And they really did. The following days were a whirlwind of activities. Sarah proved to be an exceptional organizer, creating a detailed schedule for each step of the process. First came the documents: passport, visa, certificates. Then intensive English and basic Arabic classes began. Emily discovered she had a surprising facility for languages, something she had never noticed before. "You have a natural gift for languages," commented her English teacher, Melissa, an American that Abraham had specially hired to prepare her. "Your pronunciation is improving rapidly." Mornings were dedicated to language studies, afternoons to practical preparations. Sarah took her shopping for clothes suitable for Dubai's climate and culture, teaching her about different occasions and dress codes. "In Dubai, you'll find a fascinating balance between modernity and tradition," Sarah explained, as she helped Emily choose some elegant but modest dresses. "It's important to respect local customs, even in a cosmopolitan city." At the store, Mr. Adamar was more than understanding when she explained the situation. "You deserve this and much more, Emily," he said, emotional. "Just promise you won't forget about us when you're rich and famous in Dubai." Her co-workers organized a small farewell party during lunch hour. Emily was touched to see that even the oldest customers showed up to say goodbye. At college, the news caused a stir. The course coordinator was especially excited about the possibility of having a former student studying at a prestigious international university. "This opens doors not just for you, Emily, but shows all our students that it's possible to dream big," he said, helping her with the transfer documents. Julia, her best friend, alternated between moments of excitement and sadness. "I can't believe you're really leaving," she said during an afternoon when she was helping Emily organize her things. "Who's going to listen to me complain about life? Now? There's video calls, silly." Emily laughed, hugging her friend. "And you're going to visit me in Dubai, even if I have to pay for your ticket with my intern's salary." At home, every night was special. Her mother outdid herself even more with the food, preparing all of Emily's favorite dishes. Her father spent more time in the living room, just watching Emily study or make her notes, as if wanting to keep every moment in his memory. A week before the trip, Abraham surprised them with a visit to the family's house. The billionaire sheikh sat at the simple kitchen table, gratefully accepting the coffee prepared by Emily's mother. "Your daughter is very special," he told Emily's parents, "and I promise I'll take care of her as if she were my own family." Her mother, with tears in her eyes, served more coffee. "You can't imagine what this means to us," she said. "Seeing our daughter having an opportunity we could never give her." Abraham smiled, that same enigmatic smile from their first encounter. "Sometimes, Mrs. Johnson, the greatest blessings come disguised as casual encounters on rainy days." At night, after Abraham left, Emily found a small package on her bed. Inside was a latest model Kindle, already loaded with various books on business, Arab culture, and personal development. "For your study hours," said the attached note. "True wealth is in knowledge, Abraham." Emily held the Kindle against her chest, feeling the weight of responsibility and opportunity in her hands. In a week, she would be embarking on a new life, a new world. The fear was still there, but now it was overcome by determination. In her diary, she wrote, "Sometimes life presents us with doors that seem too big to walk through. But maybe the secret isn't being sure we can do it, but having enough courage to try." Dubai International Airport was like a futuristic city. Emily got off the plane feeling like Alice in Wonderland, amazed at the glass and steel structures that rose around her. After almost 20 hours of travel, including a connection in Paris, she had finally arrived at her new destination. Sarah was waiting for her at arrivals, elegant as always in her executive suit. "Welcome to Dubai, Emily," she smiled, hugging the young American woman. "How was your flight?" "Amazing," Emily replied, still trying to absorb everything around her. "I never imagined airports could be like this." "Oh, this is just the beginning," Sarah laughed, guiding her through the terminal. "Wait until you see the rest of the city." On the way to the car, Emily couldn't stop looking up, admiring the digital panels and luxury shops that seemed to have come out of a science fiction movie. The contrast with the small regional airport that served Pine Grove couldn't be greater. The car waiting for them was a black limousine with a beige leather interior and air conditioning that offered a welcome relief from the desert heat. As they glided along Dubai's perfectly paved avenues, Emily pressed her face against the window, trying to absorb every detail. "That's the Burj Khalifa," Sarah pointed to a building that seemed to touch the clouds. "The tallest building in the world. And there," she indicated a sail-shaped structure, "is the Burj Al Arab, one of the most luxurious hotels on the planet." Emily felt her heart beat faster with each new sight. The gleaming skyscrapers, the dancing fountains, the luxury cars passing by. Everything seemed too unreal to be true. "And here," Sarah announced as the car stopped in front of an elegant building, "is where you'll be living." The Palm Residence was a high-end condominium located in a prime area of the city. Emily's apartment was on the 20th floor, overlooking the Persian Gulf. When the door opened, she had to hold herself back from screaming with excitement. The space was larger than her entire house in Pine Grove. The living room had floor-to-ceiling windows, modern and elegant furniture, and a balcony that offered a breathtaking view of the city. The kitchen was equipped with state-of-the-art appliances, and the master bedroom looked like it came out of a decorating magazine. "This will be your home for the next few years," Sarah explained, showing the details of the apartment. "There's a 24-hour security system, gym, pool, and a driver at your disposal to take you to university and internship." Emily sat on the couch, feeling slightly dizzy. It's all so incredible," she managed to say. "It almost doesn't seem real." Sarah sat down next to her, her face taking on a more serious expression. "Emily, I know all this might seem overwhelming now, but remember, you're here on your own merit. Sheikh Abraham doesn't choose people at random. He saw something special in you." Sarah's words brought tears to Emily's eyes. She took out her phone, looking at the last photo she had taken with her parents at Sao Paulo airport. "They would be proud to see you now," Sarah commented softly. "I already miss them," Emily admitted, wiping away her tears. "It's natural, but you'll have a lot of work to distract you. Tomorrow, we start with your orientation at the university, and next week, you begin your internship." After Sarah left, promising to return the next morning, Emily explored every corner of her new home. In the closet, she found a complete wardrobe with clothes suitable for the local climate and culture. On the desk in the bedroom, there was a new laptop and study material organized in folders. In the kitchen, the refrigerator was stocked with food, including some American products that made her smile affectionately. There was even frozen cheese bread and coffee of the same brand her mother always bought. As night fell, Emily sat on the balcony, watching the city lights come on one by one. Dubai at night was a spectacle of lights and colors, with illuminated buildings creating an almost magical scenery. She took her diary, now accompanied by the Kindle Abraham had given her, and began to write. "Dear Diary, today I woke up in Pine Grove, and I'll sleep in Dubai. It feels like I've lived an entire year in a single day. Everything here is so big, so bright, so different. I feel like I'm living a dream, but at the same time, I feel the weight of responsibility. I can't disappoint the people who believed in me." A soft noise interrupted her. It was her phone announcing a video call. Her mother's smiling face appeared on the screen, with her father peeking over her shoulder. "Honey, did you arrive safely? What's it like there? Are you eating right?" The questions came in a cascade. Emily felt her heart warm. As luxurious as her new apartment was, as impressive as the view was, true comfort was in those familiar faces. On the phone screen, "It's all amazing, Mom," she began to tell, turning the phone to show the view. "But you know what I missed most today? Your coffee." The conversation went on for almost an hour, with Emily showing every corner of the apartment and her parents alternating between expressions of amazement and moments of emotion. When she finally said goodbye and went to bed, the strange room no longer seemed so strange. On the bedside table, she placed the only framed photo she had brought from home, her with her parents and Julia on her last night in Pine Grove. Tomorrow, her new life would truly begin. There would be challenges, she knew, but she was ready to face them. As she settled into the soft sheets of her new bed, Emily smiled to herself. "It's like Mom always says," she thought. "God doesn't give a dream without also giving the strength to achieve it." The Dubai Business School was very different from the small college in Pine Grove. The campus, with its ultra-modern buildings and perfectly manicured gardens, looked more like a luxury resort than an educational institution. Emily adjusted the strap of her new bag as she followed Sarah through the air-conditioned corridors. "Here's your classroom," Sarah indicated a frosted glass door. "The International MBA class." Emily took a deep breath before entering. The room was an elegant amphitheater with ergonomic chairs and desks equipped with built-in tablets. The other students were already there, talking in small groups. There were people from all parts of the world: American executives, European entrepreneurs, heirs to Asian fortunes. "Hello," a cheerful voice greeted her. "You must be Emily from the United States." The owner of the voice was Fatima Al-Rashid, a young Emirati woman who would be her mentor in the integration program. With her elegant hijab and welcoming smile, Fatima quickly made Emily feel more at ease. "Professor Harrison is coming," Fatima explained, guiding her to an empty seat. "He's demanding but brilliant, an expert in corporate strategy." The professor entered the room at exactly 8 a.m. Tall, with grey hair and thin-rimmed glasses, he had a presence that immediately commanded respect. "Welcome to the International MBA," he began, his gaze scanning the room. "You were selected from thousands of candidates. You're here because you've demonstrated exceptional potential. But potential without hard work is like a luxury car without fuel. It impresses but goes nowhere." Emily felt butterflies in her stomach. The level of discussion in class was much higher than she was used to. The business cases were complex, the analyses deep, and everyone seemed to have years of corporate experience. During the break, a group of students approached her. "So you're Sheikh Abraham's protege?" asked a young American man, his tone a mix of curiosity and skepticism. "Must be really special to catch his attention." Emily felt her face burn. "Actually," Fatima intervened, "the Sheikh is known for his keen eye for unique talents. He's not easily impressed." The afternoon brought another challenge, her first day of internship at the Al Rahman Group. The office occupied 10 floors of a mirrored skyscraper in Dubai's financial center. Emily was assigned to the business development area under the supervision of Hassan Al-Mahmoud, an experienced executive with a reputation for perfectionism. "Your academic record is impressive," Hassan commented, analyzing her documents. "But here you'll start from scratch. You'll have to prove your worth like any other intern." The work was intense. Emily found herself immersed in spreadsheets, reports, and market analyses. Each task was a test, each presentation a chance to show her value or to fail spectacularly. On her third day, during an important meeting, she noticed an error in a financial projection that no one else had caught. She hesitated for a moment, her heart pounding before raising her hand. "Excuse me, Mr. Al-Mahmoud," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I think there's an inconsistency in the third quarter." "Numbers." Hassan frowned, but allowed her to explain. When Emily finished her analysis, a tense silence fell over the room. Then, to her surprise, Hassan smiled. "Excellent observation, Ms. Johnson," he said. "It's exactly this kind of attention to detail we need here." At night, exhausted but satisfied, Emily made her daily video calls with her family. Her father had learned to use the phone better just to be able to talk to her, and her mother always appeared with some new story about people in Pine Grove asking about her. "Mr. George from the store said he saw Dubai on the news," her mother proudly recounted. "He showed everyone saying, 'That's where my Emily is.'" The homesickness was strong, but Emily was determined not to let it affect her performance. She studied late, prepared exhaustively for each class, each meeting. Her Kindle was always with her, filling every free moment with readings about business, Arab culture, and leadership. Fatima became a precious friend, helping her navigate not only the academic challenges, but also the cultural nuances of Dubai. "You're adapting very well," Fatima commented during lunch. "Many foreigners take months to understand our social dynamics." "I still make a lot of gaffes," Emily laughed, remembering when she almost entered a men-only area in a traditional restaurant. "But you learn quickly," Fatima smiled. "And more importantly, you respect our culture. That makes all the difference." A month after her arrival, Emily received an email from Abraham inviting her for tea in his office. The Sheikh's office occupied the top floor of the Al Rahman Group building, with a panoramic view of Dubai. "How are you adapting?" he asked, serving the same special tea they had shared in Pine Grove. "It's intense," Emily admitted. "Sometimes I feel completely lost, like I'm trying to climb a mountain without equipment. But I've also never learned so much in such a short time." Abraham smiled, that enigmatic smile she knew well by now. "Do you know why I chose you, Emily?" he asked, surprising her. "It wasn't just for your kindness on that rainy day. It was because I saw in your eyes something rare, the ability to remain humble even with so much potential, and the strength to grow without losing your essence." Emily felt tears forming in her eyes. "Thank you for your trust," she said. "I promise I won't disappoint." "Don't promise not to disappoint," Abraham replied. "Promise to always try. Failure is part of learning. What matters is how you get up after falling." Back in her apartment that night, Emily sat on the balcony, her favorite place to think. Dubai sparkled below, a city of endless possibilities. In her diary, she wrote, "Sometimes I wonder if I'm still the same Emily who distributed bread and coffee in Pine Grove. But then I realized that I am, just a version that's learning to dream even bigger." 6 months had passed since Emily's arrival in Dubai. The desert sun no longer seemed so harsh, Arabic no longer sounded so strange to her ears, and the city streets were beginning to feel familiar. Her life had found its own rhythm, intense but rewarding. At Dubai Business School, she was no longer just the Sheikh's protégé. Her exceptional grades and insightful class participations had earned the respect of colleagues and professors. That morning, Professor Harrison detained her after the corporate strategy class. "Ms. Johnson, your latest work on emerging markets was remarkable," he commented, adjusting his glasses. "Especially your analysis of how traditional companies can adapt to cultural changes without losing their essence." Emily blushed at the compliment. She had spent sleepless nights working on that project, using her own experience as inspiration. "Thank you, Professor. I've learned a lot by observing how companies here in Dubai manage to balance tradition and innovation. It's exactly this kind of observation that differentiates a good manager from an exceptional leader," he smiled. "By the way, did you know you're at the top of the class ranking?" The news caught Emily by surprise. Her class was composed of brilliant people, many with years of experience in large corporations. At the Al Rahman Group, her evolution was equally notable. Hassan Al Mahmoud had begun to entrust her with increasingly greater responsibilities. That afternoon, she was leading an important presentation on an expansion project for the Latin American market. "As you can see," Emily explained, pointing to the graphs projected on the screen, "there's a unique opportunity to combine the Al Rahman Group's expertise in sustainable development with the growing needs of the Brazilian market." The meeting room was packed. Senior executives, including Hassan, watched attentively as she presented data, projections, and strategies. Her hands no longer trembled when pointing to the screen. Her voice didn't hesitate when answering difficult questions. "Impressive, Ms. Johnson," commented one of the directors after the presentation. "Your understanding of both the market and the local culture is a valuable differentiator." Hassan called her to his office after the meeting. "Emily," he began, using her first name for the first time, "I want you to lead this project." She blinked, surprised. "But I'm just an intern." "An intern who just presented the best expansion plan I've seen in the last 5 years, he smiled. "You'll have a team at your disposal, of course, but I want you to be at the forefront of strategic decisions." The news was both exciting and frightening. Emily thought about how her life had changed in such a short time. From a cashier in Pine Grove to leading an international project in one of the largest companies in the Middle East. At home, during her daily video call with her parents, she shared the news. "My daughter," her mother cried with emotion, "you have no idea how proud we are. Your father tells everyone he meets about your achievements." "It's true," her father laughed, discreetly wiping his eyes. "I even framed that article from the local newspaper about you." Emily smiled, remembering the small piece that the Pine Grove newspaper had published about her story. From simplicity to success, Pine Grove youth shines in Dubai. But not everything was rosy. Success brought new challenges and responsibilities. The study nights became even longer, the pressures even greater. At times, the homesickness seemed unbearable. It was on one of these difficult nights that Fatima showed up at her apartment with homemade Arab food and a friendly shoulder. "You need to find balance," her friend advised, serving another cup of tea. "Professional success doesn't mean abandoning who you are." "Sometimes I feel divided," Emily admitted, "as if there were two versions of me. The simple girl from Pine Grove and the Dubai executive. But it's precisely this duality that makes you special," Fatima smiled. "You can see the world from different perspectives. That's a gift, not a weakness." The conversation with Fatima made her reflect. The next day, during her lunch break, Emily did something she hadn't done in weeks. She walked to a nearby cafe and bought extra snacks. On the way back, she distributed them among the construction workers she met, exactly as she used to do in Pine Grove. "Shukran," they thanked, surprised and touched by the gesture. That small act of kindness reconnected her with her essence. She realized that she didn't need to choose between who she was and who she was becoming. She could be both. In her next monthly meeting with Abraham, she shared this discovery. "Excellent," he smiled, serving more tea. "Now you're really starting to understand leadership." "How so?" "True leaders don't transform into different people when they achieve success," he explained. "They grow, evolve, but maintain their essence. That's what makes them authentic and inspiring." Emily thought about Abraham's words as she worked on her new project. She began to incorporate elements of social responsibility into her strategies, ensuring that the expansion plan included real benefits for local communities. One afternoon, she received an unexpected message from Julia. "Girl, you won't believe it. I saw your photo on the Al Rahman Group's LinkedIn. The girl who used to share bread with others is now sharing opportunities. So proud of you." The message made her smile. It was true, she was still sharing, just in a different way now. In her diary, she wrote, "Today I understood that growing doesn't mean changing who we are, but expanding who we can be." The same. Emily, who cared about others in Pine Grove, can now make a difference on a larger scale. And that's not a contradiction, it's evolution. The expansion project for the Latin American market was in its final phase. After months of intense work, endless meetings, and countless spreadsheets, Emily was about to present the final results to the board of directors of the Al Rahman Group. But there was something special about this presentation. It would be done in Pine Grove. "We want to see in practice how you intend to implement your strategy of connecting with local markets," Hassan explained when he proposed the idea. "And what better place to start than your hometown?" The news that a delegation from the Al Rahman Group would visit Pine Grove caused a stir in the small town. The mayor declared a municipal holiday, and the Chamber of Commerce organized a special reception in the Grand Hotel's ballroom. On the eve of the presentation, Emily arrived in Pine Grove accompanied by Fatima, who had insisted on getting to know the town she had heard so much about. The contrast between Dubai and her homeland had never seemed so evident, but also never so insignificant. "It's exactly as you described," Fatima smiled, observing the tree-lined streets and people greeting each other by name. "There's a soul here that no skyscraper can replicate." At home, her mother had prepared a welcome feast. The smell of homemade bread and fresh coffee filled every corner, and the kitchen table was laden with American treats. "I brought a special friend," Emily announced, introducing Fatima. "She's been taking care of me in Dubai like a sister." To everyone's surprise, Fatima pulled out a package of Arabic spices from her bag. "For you to make that coffee Emily misses so much," she explained in carefully rehearsed English, making Emily's mother cry with emotion. The next morning, before the big presentation, Emily woke up early and retraced her old path to the store. The streets were different. New shops had opened, some facades had been renovated, but the essence remained the same. Johnson's Market had undergone a renovation, but Mr. Adamar was still there, now as general manager. When he saw her coming in, his eyes filled with tears. "Look who's back," he exclaimed, hugging her. "Our international star." Emily spent some time chatting with her former colleagues, hearing the town's news. She discovered that her example had inspired other young people to pursue their dreams. 3 former market colleagues were now in college. On the way back, she stopped at the central square. Mr. Joe, the gentleman she used to help, was no longer there. He had managed to reconnect with his family and now lived with his daughter in another city. But new faces in need of help had arrived, and Emily noticed that someone was continuing the tradition of distributing coffee and bread every morning. The presentation was scheduled for 2 p.m. in the college auditorium, the only space in town large enough to accommodate all interested parties. When Emily arrived, she found the place packed. Besides the Al Rahman Group executives and local authorities, there were students, merchants, and curious residents. Abraham was seated in the front row next to Hassan. His eyes sparkled with that same enigmatic look from their first encounter, as if he knew exactly how everything would end. "Good afternoon, everyone," Emily began, her voice firm and confident. "Today I won't just be presenting a business plan, I'll be presenting a vision of how we can create bridges between different worlds, keeping the best of each." Her presentation was different from anything she had ever done. It blended financial data with personal stories, market projections with practical examples of local reality. She showed how the lessons she had learned in Pine Grove about community, empathy, and perseverance could be applied on a global scale. "True development doesn't mean abandoning our roots," she explained, projecting photos of successful Al Rahman Group social projects. "It means using our strength to help others grow too." At the end, she presented her boldest proposal, using Pine Grove as a pilot project for a new regional development model, combining strategic investments with local training programs. "Imagine," she concluded, "a future where every pine grove in the world has the chance to shine without losing its essence." The silence that followed was broken by an explosion of applause. Hassan was the first to stand up, followed by Abraham, and soon the entire audience was on their feet. "Extraordinary," Hassan commented afterwards, shaking her hand. "You didn't just understand our vision, you expanded it." Abraham called her to a quieter corner. "Remember that rainy day?" he asked, smiling. "I was looking for someone who could see beyond appearances, who understood that true wealth is in how we use our resources to help others. You not only proved I was right, you exceeded all expectations." Emily felt tears in her eyes as she saw her parents in the audience, proud and emotional. Her father wore his best suit, and her mother displayed a smile that lit up the entire room. Later, during the reception at the Grand Hotel, Emily observed people chatting animatedly. International. Executives mingling with local merchants, students exchanging ideas with investors, her mother teaching Fatima how to make cheese bread. In her diary, she wrote, "Today I understood that no matter how far we go, our true strength comes from our roots, and that sometimes we need to return home to discover the true meaning of success." A year had passed since the presentation in Pine Grove. The pilot project had not only been approved, but had exceeded all expectations. The small town in the American Midwest had transformed into a model of sustainable development, proving that it was possible to grow without losing identity. The old Johnson's Market was now a modern commercial center, but it maintained its welcoming essence. Mr. Adamar was still in management, now coordinating a professional training program for young people in the region. The community breakfast, which Emily had started years ago, had transformed into a structured social project, serving dozens of people daily. In Dubai, Emily was preparing for her MBA graduation. She was at the top of her class, and her thesis on sustainable regional development would be published in one of the world's most prestigious business journals. "You revolutionized our way of thinking about expansion in emerging markets," Professor Harrison commented during their last advisory session. "Not just theoretically, but with proven practical results." At the Al Rahman Group, her career had taken off. From intern to executive manager in record time, she now led the Sustainable Regional Development Division, a department created especially to expand the Pine Grove model to other locations. On that special morning, Emily walked through the mirrored corridors of the Al Rahman Group with a different smile on her face. It was her last day at the office before an important trip, not to Dubai or Pine Grove, but to a small town in rural India. where she would implement the next project. Hassan called her to his office for a final meeting. "When you arrived here," he began, a proud smile on his face, "I thought you would be just another success story, but you proved to be much more. You created a legacy." Emily smiled, remembering her first meeting in that same room, when she could barely control the trembling in her hands. "I learned that success isn't about how high we climb," she replied, "but about how many people we can help climb with us." Before leaving for the airport, she had one last appointment, tea with Abraham in his office. The sheikh was exactly as he had been on the first day, that same enigmatic look and serene smile. "You know, Emily," he said, serving the special tea that she now recognized as a blend of desert spices, "when I met you on that rainy day, I saw something rare, someone who instinctively understood that true wealth isn't in what we possess, but in what we share." "You changed my life," she replied, emotional. "No," Abraham smiled. "I just opened a door. You built your own bridge, and more importantly, you're building bridges for others." Back in her Dubai apartment, Emily made her last video call before the trip. On the screen, her parents' smiling faces mingled with Julia's, who now coordinated the social program at Johnson's Market. "Honey, you have no idea how proud we are," her mother said, tears in her eyes. "Not just for your achievements, but for you still being our Emily." "The project here is transforming lives," Julia added. "Last week, 3 more young people got scholarships." After the call, Emily went to her favorite balcony. Dubai sparkled below, no longer an alien city, but a second home. On her desk, the Kindle Abraham had given her sat next to her old diary, perfect symbols of how her life had changed and at the same time remained true to its origins. She opened the diary one last time before leaving. "Dear Diary, today I understand that rainy day in Pine Grove wasn't just a casual encounter. It was the beginning of a journey much bigger than myself. I learned that success isn't measured by titles or achievements, but by the impact we have on others' lives. Tomorrow I leave for another adventure, taking with me the lessons from Pine Grove and Dubai. Each place taught me something precious. My hometown showed me the value of humility and generosity. Dubai taught me that it's possible to dream big without losing one's essence. The real miracle wasn't leaving a small town to conquer the world, but discovering that we can be a bridge between different worlds, that we can use our achievements to open doors for others, just as someone once opened doors for us. Because in the end, it's not the skyscrapers that touch the sky that matter, but the smiles we manage to put on people's faces. It's not the height we reach that counts, but how many hands we help climb with us. And maybe that's the true meaning of success. Not just achieving our dreams, but helping others to dream too." Emily closed the diary and looked one last time at the city that had welcomed her. The sun was setting on the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, exactly like that first day she arrived. But now she was no longer just the scared girl from Pine Grove. She was a bridge between worlds, a builder of dreams. In her bag, along with her passport and the documents for the new project, there was a small package of American coffee and cheese bread. Because no matter where she was, she would always carry with her the essence of who she was, a person who believed that the greatest gift we can give to the world is to share our blessings with others.